Welcome to Seeing This. I'm Mike Ornelas, and today I'm honored to be joined by producer, writer, director Dan Egan, whose directorial debut, Transforming the Beautiful Game, The Clyde Best Story, shines a spotlight on one of football's most important yet often overlooked pioneers who broke racial barriers during the height of racial tension in the UK, while also leaving a lasting influence on the growth of the sport here in the United States. Dan, welcome to the show.
Nice to see you, Mike. How's everything?
All is good. All is good. I'm wearing the Spain shirt right now with the World Cup taking place. They didn't do too well, but that's what the World Cup is about, the underdogs triumphing. So I'm doing
It's
well.
a emotional roller coaster.
Indeed. Indeed. Congratulations on your film. It's such an insightful film about the incredible human being that helped shape this beautiful game that we see today. How did you first get introduced to Clyde Best, and what led you to want to create this documentary about his story?
Well, one of the beautiful things about sport is teammates, and they become lifelong friends. And the film is about teammates. And my teammate in 1982 was Jerry Best, Clyde's nephew. And we met at a school. We were both doing a postgraduate year after high school. Jerry was from Bermuda, obviously, and he came up to me first day of practice. He said, "Hey, man, you're pretty good, but your only job's to pass me the ball." He goes, "My job's to score." And I was like, "Jerry, I'm all in." And we won everything. Jerry was the best player I ever played with, even in college. I thought Jerry was by far the most talented player I'd ever met. And we won the state championships. We were both the two leading goal scorers, Jerry being the leading goal scorer. And it was amazing. And Jerry at Bridgeton Academy always talked about his uncle, the Jackie Robinson of England.
Right.
And you don't forget that. You don't forget that. And teammates are special. So Jerry and I stayed in touch. We became lifelong friends. And I've in and out of Bermuda for a number of different reasons over my life, of my career. And I produced for the America's Cup sailboat race when it was hosted in Bermuda
Oh, wow.
and in 2000. So I was really there for 2 years, from 2015 to 2017. And I was hanging out with Clyde Best. I was hanging out with Jerry Best. And
Not too bad.
yeah, it was pretty fun, man. We'd just be chilling at night and they'd come and sit on the veranda. We'd talk football, soccer, and this is how the idea started. Yeah.
And I'm always curious with documentaries, like that initial pitch or call with a subject of a documentary, what that dynamic is like, what it's like. So I'm curious with Clyde, what was his initial reaction when you pitched this idea? What was he hesitant at all? Was he all in from the beginning? What was that like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I remember the call. Jerry would call me all the time. Will you help my uncle? Will you help my uncle? You're the only person we know in production. And then we set the call up with Clyde. And Clyde is a very understated person. He's very humble. He doesn't advocate for himself. Um, so he was like, if you two have this idea and you want to pursue it, I'm in, but let's see where it goes. He's like, he didn't really have an agenda. He didn't have a story one to tell. He was like, I had a great career, and Clyde always said he would have gone to Timbuktu to play, and he just wanted to play. And his main messages were, I was playing for those who came after me. And he said that from the very beginning. His dad always told him that. And what I've really learned about Clyde is the noble Bermudian character.
Uh,
Be nice to others. That's really his whole being.
that really shows through in your documentary. He has paved the way for so many footballers in today's generation, and you have an incredible opportunity to talk to many of them. Many people across generations, not just in football but also within activism, to try to break down these racial barriers. How in the world did you edit in a way that you had to make some tough decisions on some
Uh,
conversations that are on the cutting room floor? Like, because you do talk to a lot of people that have great things to say about Clyde and his contribution to the game. How did you make those difficult decisions on what goes in and what just had to be left on the cutting room floor?
Man, you're talking right at the key issues right now, Mikey. It's it's not what you put in a film; it's what you take out. And this film was like 5 hours long, no exaggeration, and it
Wow.
was humming along at 5 hours. We knew we couldn't live there, and getting it to an hour and a half, it was a struggle. because there was so much. Viv Anderson, Ian Wright, Les Ferdinand. We, and really we interviewed most of the first black players in every Premier League team.
Hmm.
Howard Gale goes on and on. And we made a decision early in the editing process that we were going to use a lot of voices, that this film deserved a lot of voices. Clyde had a wide impact, reached a lot of people around the world, and it was going to take a lot of voices to put it all together. That's a big decision because most docs are 8 to 12 voices.
Sure.
We're 43,
Wow. Yeah.
and I shot almost double that. So, we had a lot of cut down. So we had some criteria, but, you know, at the end of the day, everybody had a direct connection to Clyde.
Right.
And that's the most impactful thing. And everybody we interviewed all loved Clyde and all that stuff, but keeping the thread Clyde, and of course Clive Charles was the key.
I can't wait to see the director cut that comes maybe a few years down the line
That's
to get
it.
the whole 5 hour documentary. So Clyde's story is filled with barriers being broken. As you touched on, one of the first black men to play in the UK's top league, coming to the US to play in a developing soccer league, and ultimately eventually playing for the Portland Timbers. And it's helped make Portland Soccer City, USA. As I live in the area, I'm going to try to claim that. In your conversations with Clyde, you touched on it about the Bermuda characteristics. But what about his character in particular do you think has allowed him to be so humble, resilient, and inspirational, which all started at the age of 15, having to face some of these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the Bermudian way. There were racial tensions in Bermuda, but when Clyde was a young boy, the racial tension and riots were resolved peacefully.
Mm,
And so Clyde learned peaceful resolution. It got worse after he left the island to play in West Ham. So Clyde wasn't a witness to the real racial riots. He was witness to racial protests and racial resolution, uh, particularly around the theater boycotts, where the black residents of the islands boycotted all the island theaters. It
mm.
was a very famous thing, but that got resolved. So when Clyde moves to England as a 17-year-old boy, not knowing that he's going right into the heat of it, uh, his result, the Bermudians are welcome home. It's nice. They're nice to people. His parents gave him very simple instructions at the airport before he got on the plane. Be nice to people.
Hmm.
And that was Clyde's thing. The other thing that really moved him was nothing was going to turn him around. So he wasn't going to make a mistake with himself. He wasn't going to act out. He was going to score goals. He was going to be the best he could be, but he was going to make this work. It was his shot. And I think, when we look at today's players in today's environment, Clyde Best went to play soccer because he loved the game. A lot of people can say they love the game, but they also get a lot of money.
Sure.
He did it without the money. He did it just to play the game. And that's really different these days. And that's not a judgment. It's just a reality of the time. And Clyde went to play, and he was going to do anything. And if he had to endure to play today, he was going to prove he was worth it tomorrow.
The documentary sheds light on the ugliness of racism in its various forms, from the UK to the States. And, since the 60s, when his, playing time starts, there has been progress in the effort to combat racism in football. And that doesn't change the fact that people today are still subjected to racism. What do you feel, with your experience in playing and putting this together, the people you've talked to, what do you think will be that next step to eradicate racism from football?
Well, it's a great question. And in the movie, we go a long way. What Clyde says, which is really the voice that matters, is, hey, people, give something back.
Hmm.
Make a change. You make the change. You be the change. And we use a lot of different examples of players that are giving back. Um, and then Clyde really comes to term, not living in a world of social media, not
Sure.
living, on this idea of having a platform. He just did it through excellence. So Clyde's whole mode of operation is if they give you a hard time, score a goal. Like, don't walk off the field, don't say anything, score a goal. Shut them up through performance. Now I know that's a different day and a different era and everybody, but it's a good message. And, Clyde lives by that message. So I think that that's kind of the thing. What's going to be the next step? I think is like, you know, of course, we make the point in the movie that, yeah, 43% of the Premier League is black,
Right.
but not the front office. And we go to a long lengths to say that North American Soccer League was the most diverse league, professional league in the world. And in this country, it was more diverse than football, basketball, and
Right.
baseball in the 70s. So North American Soccer League often gets overlooked for the things that it broke ground for, the things that we built our foundation in this country on. Um, and Clyde Best was not a former old retired player when he came here. He was 27. He was still in his prime. And players, particularly the black and brown players, knew what Clyde had done.
Mhm.
So it was significant when he came to play here.
Well, I can sense that you've also picked up on some of Clyde's humbleness, because I would say the next step is also having films like yours that shed light on this history. And, I think a lot of solutions come from knowing what's happened in the past. And your documentary does a great job of shedding light on that. What do you think about this story in particular and Clyde's life that has been a bit overlooked? It's not as well known, particularly here in the States, on what his journey has been, what it's represent, what change it's brought. Is there anything in particular that you found might be like why it's not highlighted as it should be?
Yeah, there's a few things actually. One, technology. So
Mm,
when Clyde moves to play for West Ham, match of the day was just a few years old in London. So in England. So, Clyde becomes the first black face on UK TV. There's not another sports writer, there's not a news journalist, there's not an actor. It's Clyde Best. So he becomes a universal player and is seen as a universal player. He's loved beyond the fan base of West Ham, which, as you know, in England, that's tough to do. And these days, tough to do anywhere.
right.
Players from all around, they loved him. Um, when that story didn't resonate in America because we had Jackie Robinson, we had other breakthroughs, we had that happen. So when Clyde comes here and sort of starts putting grassroots to football, soccer in Tampa, in Portland, you know, and then he went back to coach in Bermuda. But the legacy is Clive Charles
Uh-huh.
because Clive Charles went into coaching and stayed in America.
Right.
So that really sort of becomes the legacy of the Clyde Best, Clive Charles, Addy Coker story. Is that what Clive Charles was able to accomplish? So in England, if you mention Clive Charles, they'll say Clyde Best. And if in this country, if you say Clyde Best, they go, no, don't you mean Clive Charles?
Right.
So, what people don't know is how they were connected, that they
Mhm.
lived in the same household for 6 years. Um, and that they were brothers, basically. So, and I appreciate your comment, about the film, because what I say when we show the film is be part of this conversation.
Mhm.
When we built the film, we built tension into the film for black and white audiences.
Sure.
So there's times in the film where you know, you feel it or you should feel it on both sides. And that's where the resolution happens is if there's tension in the same place and there's conversation, we're moving forward.
I really appreciate the moments in the documentary. You open saying that this is about teammates, and that the foundation is about teammates, and you do highlight Clyde's teammates that were part of this journey and help pave the way as well. But in regards to the tension in the film, those moments where like they're in danger, there's very dangerous situations that they're facing, and it's members of the community that protect them or provide some kind of sanctuary or stand up against these racial aggressions. And I think that's a testament, at least that I took, that no matter who you are, you have an opportunity to do the right thing, to be an ally. So I appreciate that you highlighted that in the documentary. How did you fall in love with the sport? What got you into it? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, my fourth grade gym teacher was the high school's varsity coach, and he started town soccer with my fourth grade class. He knew if he raised us up, by the time we got to high school, he'd have a team. So we were one game above 500 my senior year. It's the first winning team in the history of the town, and that started in fourth grade. Um, and he raised a generation of players that would go on to play D1, D3, all over. And he coached players that went on to win national championships. So that was phenomenal. And he did a really cool thing when Tom Herget did that in Milton, Massachusetts. Was when we were in grade school, we played with the middle schoolers. When we were middle schoolers, we played with the high schoolers.
Mm,
And when I was in high school, I was on a men's team. And when I was on the men's team in the summer, it was a team that he was on. So all the coaches in New England were on that team. Boston College, BU, Northeastern, Babson, Brandeis, all these coaches played on that men's team.
wow.
And that's how I got recruited to play. And they all told me the same thing. I needed to work on my grades. That's how I met Jerry Best, because I had to go do another year. But that sort of like, coach always played with us, and coach always pushed us up a level. I model all my coaching today after him. I drive around with a bag of balls in my car. And
Ready
then
to go.
and cones, and we set up and play. It's not complicated. I don't use things. I use cones and balls,
Sure.
and
Sure.
our shirts if we need a net. Like, it's very, very simple. And so I fell in love because of that. And it was the North American Soccer League, Boston Minutemen, Boston T-Men. I went to those games. I saw Clyde Best as a kid play.
Oh, wow.
So, that sort of thing. And of course, Pele changed our lives when he
Right.
came, you know? Yeah.
Right, right. I love that you incorporate Pele as well as kind of the overlap as far as timeline goes and how Clyde fits into that and, was competitive. Like if I'm going to go up against Pele, I'm going to score. And I love that whole segment in
Yeah.
the documentary as well. As of this recording, all eyes are fixated on the group stage of the World Cup being hosted here in North America. So I do have to ask, prediction time, who do you have winning it all?
No, that's great. We ask everybody every time we show it, who's going to win it all. And, of course, it would be great if the U.S. you did it. And I'm not going to say who said it and who predicted it, but in those interviews that we shot for this movie, we have some pretty famous English former players saying USA. So be stand by for that. We're going to release it if it's possible. But,
I love it.
you know, I I don't know. It to me, the game, the way it's played today, I like it. I still like the teams that attack. I'm
Hmm.
not the possession game. It's nice, but attack the end line, turn the corner, head to that near post.
Hmm.
It creates opportunities, and it's frustrating to watch when it doesn't happen. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's really cool. Of course, Germany beat up on people. It looks amazing. I think Spain is historically so amazing to watch,
Yeah.
and I would love to see them do it. Um, I'm just really soaking it all in,
Yeah.
um, and trying to get attention to the film. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome, awesome. Safe answer. The film takes priority.
yeah, exactly.
um, yeah, just a question I like to ask everyone as I wrap up. What is a underseen film that you'd like to recommend to folks? It could be correlated to the subject matter of your documentary or elsewise, just something people should put on their radar.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. When it comes to things that motivate you, right? Um, you know, the Mr. Rogers film, the documentary on Mr. Rogers, that was basically what we built our film around. Because
Wow.
you have a really gentle guy who really impacted a lot of people in a meaningful way, in a simple
Mm,
way. And that was Clyde's approach, you know? Um, but there's other films that, as a filmmaker, I love, and I love the moments of movies. So the ending of A River Runs Through It,
Sure.
I still fish the big rivers, even though my friends tell me I shouldn't. I can give you the whole read.
Sure.
Uh, and as an adventurer and an, world renowned skier, I've been all over the world. And I've been in the Arctic. Known for skiing the most remote regions of the world. So I've been in beautiful places of beautiful things. I've been involved with, avalanches and loss of life and all those sorts of things. So the emotional attachment, the films I make and the films I watch, I have emotional attachment.
Mm,
Um, and that emotional attachment where you walk out thinking you could do it too.
mhm, mhm.
That's the whole idea, right? You could do it too. From a little place like Bermuda, you can do a big thing.
Indeed, indeed. Incredibly inspirational words from you as well as the film. I really hope and recommend that everyone will get a chance to see the beautiful, transforming the beautiful game, the Clyde Best Story. Can you shed some light on how people can keep up on the journey of the film, how they can catch it? Any information around that?
Yeah, thanks. Of course, ClydeBest.com. The tour grows daily. We've got some big shows coming up in Atlanta here in June. We'll be at the Lincoln Center in New York City right before the finals in July 10th. Then July 12th and 13th over in Atlanta before their final games in Atlanta. We'll be in Philadelphia as well. So we're trying to be in as many host cities as possible. We're lining up the streaming deals. I'm not just saying that, they're actually, like, happening,
Sure.
which is pretty fun. Um, and, it's a timeless story. It's a timeless story, but it's an important story because it's a point in time where somebody made a difference in how the game looks today. And the North American Soccer League made a difference on how the game looks today. So, Clyde's thing is inclusion.
Mhm.
Everybody matters. Everybody who played the game. If you think about somebody who they threaten to throw acid on him
Yeah,
and he doesn't have a bad word to say about anyone. He's not bitter. He just wants to play. And real quick, he played for Feyenoord in 1976 in Rotterdam. He had not been back since. And when they honored him and we went back to the stadium for him to be honored, we stepped out of the taxi in Rotterdam and a complete stranger looked up and said, "Clyde Best?" I mean, that's impact.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
after the game and after all that adulation, he goes, "Hey man, we got one more stop." And we went to an old folks home. And Clyde Best sat for 4 hours with the former trainer and physio of Feyenoord,
Oh, wow.
and for 4 hours and talked to that man. So when you think of character, when you think of faith, when you think of community, these are the things of success that matter, and that's really what Clyde represents.
The definition of being an example. Dan, it's been a pleasure speaking with you again. Transforming the beautiful game, the Clyde Best Story is the documentary. Definitely seek that out. I recommend it not just for football fans, but for everyone. It's incredibly inspirational and a very, very well done film. Dan Egan, thank you so much for your time and best of luck with everything moving forward.
All the best. Thanks so much, man. Yeah, have fun with the tournament. It's going to be great.
Cheers.